Part 17. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 167. Kosa Kosa. Our great leader. Countless people and soldiers raised their arms and shouted, and the applause was like thunder. Since Kosa became the leader of the rebel army, he has continuously led the rebel army to victory. Already the actual leader and spiritual leader of the rebel army. Every speech of Kosa played an infinite role in mobilizing the people and soldiers. Young faces carry the expectations of countless people. At this time, Kosa stood on the high platform, looking at the excited people below and waving his arms. It is my great honor to be able to stand on this high platform again today and give a speech to you. Even now, I still stick to my promise to be the leader of the rebel army. I will live and die with you and lead Alabasta enters into a bright future. Kosa's voice began to resound throughout the plaza through the loudspeaker bug. The radiophone bug broadcasts Kosa's voice to various places in Katlia City, as well as more cities in Alabasta. To this day, our hard work has made great progress. We have already gained an advantage. But if we want to achieve victory, we need to prepare harder. The enemies we are targeting are not some ruler. It's evil. Whoever that evil is. Thousands of people in the King's Restoration Square and everywhere in Katlia listened to Kosa's speech. Men, women, children, and people from all walks of life listened to Kosa's speech. However, some people also felt that the tone of Kosa's speech today was very peaceful and not as strong as in the past. But they still listened. While countless people were listening to this speech, they were in a building on the west side of the King's Fuxing Square. In this building, two figures looked at Kosa, who was giving a speech in the distance. What a young leader! I envy him so much. He, said Point 7, who was observing here. Point 7 has long white hair. Although he is only middle-aged, of course his face is not too old. Father's Day on the side said with a smile, you envy him, but he is indeed young and promising. Gwagwagwa. Point 7 turned his head again and said to Father's Day, but I am also old and graceful. Ha ha ha. You are right, I like you more than him. Gwagwagwa, Father's Day said. Father's Day looked at Kosa on the high platform outside again and said, hey, Uncle Fendu. Let's get ready to kill him. Gwagwagwa. You're right, it's best to take action now. And our evidence to frame the blame is ready. Ha ha ha. Point 7 looked behind. Behind him lay a fainted man in a corner, his body tied up. Mouth is also blocked. He was dressed like a rebel officer. Okay, it's time for us to take action. Ha ha ha. Point 7 took out a pistol and turned it around in his hand. This is a pistol made of fine steel with a three-dimensional shape. It is much more advanced than ordinary pistols. Father's Day glanced at him and took out a pistol from his waist. The pistol was decorated like a frog. I said, we won't rely on this kind of firearm for sniping. According to the calculation just now, the high platform he is on is more than meters away from here. Although our pistol can snipe, the maximum effective distance is only meters. Most of them in this case, only 300 meters is effective. If one shot fails, wouldn't it give the other party a chance to escape? Asked Father's Day. Point 7 shook his head and said, of course I won't use a pistol to snipe. Once it exceeds 300 meters, the hit rate is uncertain, so I will never do it. So I prepared a special weapon. Ha ha ha. On Father's Day, I saw this middle-aged uncle walking aside, taking a box that was 1.5 meters long and opening it. This is our weapon. Point 7 said. I walked over on Father's Day and saw a very long rifle inside the long box. The rifle is very well made. From the black alloy barrel to the oak handle and body, they are all very exquisite. There is also a special sight on the top of the gun body. There is also a bi-legged stand made of metal. This is the Death Sniper rifle that I got by collecting almost all the gun masters on the Grand Line. It has extremely high accuracy, can reach a range of 1000 meters, and is highly effective. Even the wind direction and temperature have a great impact on it. Small point 7 said. Point 7 Take out the death sniper rifle from the box. Father on the side looked at the sniper rifle and praised it. You have rich experience. I have never heard of this kind of sniper rifle. But its power is definitely very exciting. On Father's Day, I picked up the death sniper rifle and further observed the high platform in the square outside. He also used the Reaper sniper rifle, but that was only to kill some small people and animals. This time, he wanted to really take away the life of the leader of the rebel army like a god of death. Father's Day is a constant vigilance, paying attention to everything in the nearby square. The rebel army is also on high alert around. So there are guard posts around here. However, the two had already simulated at least 3 escape routes in advance, and blocked the pursuit of soldiers and possible escape routes. As for the camouflage before the gathering, the room in the old building they were in looked very dark from the outside, and the sunlight couldn't find it here, so the sniping could be done safely here. Point 7 Open the chamber of the death sniper rifle, install a long black bullet, and then close the chamber. Then he placed the death sniper rifle on a table about 4 meters away from the window, set up the bipods, and repeatedly checked the integrity of the gun body. However, the reason why he was some distance away from the window was that there was a risk of exposure if he was too close to the window. Okay, wait and prepare to escape. I will definitely hit him with one shot, and the bullet is also coated with poison. Even if it misses the vital point, it will be fatal. 7 Aimed the death sniper rifle at cow on the high platform. Sand. Inside the scope, the reticle was aimed at Koza. Koza didn't use excessive motion in his speech this time. So it's easier to snipe. The god of death in the darkness has locked Koza. However, at this time Koza was still giving speeches on the high platform. Everyone, the situation we are facing is still grim. Even if it is a temporary advantage, don't be too anxious. We must ultimately win and defeat all evil people. So we need more time to prepare. Therefore, we just ordered the extension of the rest period with the cotters. Now is the time to prepare to draw the bow and shoot the last arrow. We need to wait. Just as Kosa on the high platform was trying to give a speech, he saw the west side, that is, the left side of his body, a fire flashed in the windows of a building. Then he was hit in the body by something. Then the voice rang out. That was, gunfire. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 168. Kosa's body then fell down, and fell heavily on the high platform. The young leader who had led countless rebel armies to fight bravely fell. The gunshot and Kosa's fall shocked the people on the square and the rebels responsible for the surrounding security. Whether it is the people and soldiers who were listening carefully in the square, or the cotters waiting for Kosa under the high platform. They all looked at the high platform in shock. The 2 rebel staff who were also on the high platform looked at Kosa, who fell in front of him with shocked eyes. The loudspeaker phone bugs and radio phone bugs in their hands are still on. In the city of Katla and more cities in Alabasta, the gunshot and Kosa's speech that stopped abruptly shocked countless people who listened. Countless people's hearts were filled with extreme fear and disbelief in this short period of time. They are unwilling to believe that this is true. Or some accident happened. On the square, thousands of people and soldiers watched Kosa fall on the high platform that everyone was watching, and they all looked up silently. Under the high platform, several cotters of Kosa's confidants rushed up to the high platform. They all looked anxious and wanted to see how their leader was doing. Several cotters rushed to the high platform. What they saw was Kosa lying on the ground. His blood had soaked the masonry of the high platform. The blood looked very dazzling under the sunlight, but quickly changed to another color. They quickly turned into dark purple blood. It seems to contain a highly toxic substance. Kosa. The shouts of the cotters resounded through the sky under the loudspeaker, so that the crowd in the square could hear them clearly. The tens of thousands of people in the square couldn't believe that the leader of Kosa, who they had spoken so generously a moment ago, was actually assassinated. The people and soldiers on the square were at a loss, and many people immediately sat on the ground. The young leader who led the rebel army to victory is now assassinated. This speech turned out to be his farewell. The Qatars on the high platform helped Kosa up and shouted hard. Kosa, cheer up. You have to lead us to victory. You can't die. Under the shouts of the Qatars, Kosa's lips moved. He opened his eyes again, and looked at the anxious-looking Qatars who had been through life and death with him. Kosa, you have to hold on and quickly bandage his wounds, a Qatar said quickly. Another Qatar quickly got down. He took out a small knife and started to aim it at the right rib of Kosa. There was a hole as thick as a finger, and the surrounding area was already dark purple. Hold it, the Qatar quickly stabbed the knife down, and dark purple blood flowed across it for a while. Finally, he worked hard to dig out a long, hard bullet inside the Lara. The Qatar took out the long bullet, but immediately there was a sharp pain in his hand. This 5 cm long bullet contained highly toxic substances. While the Qatar was in pain, he quickly cut off his wrist and cut off 3 of his fingers with the knife in his hand. The 3 broken fingers quickly turned dark purple. Seeing this terrifying situation, everyone looked at Kosa again. A Qatar hurriedly tore off the cloth covering his body to help Kosa's blast wound. Kosa waved his hand and said very slowly and lowly, "Don't bother, I know I can't do it. Because the toxin of this bullet has spread throughout my body." The Qatar who was about to bandage him just now was also moved by the audience, and tears gushed out of his eyes like spring water. Kosa's complexion became more and more dark purple. "You have to continue." Kosa firmly grasped the corner of the clothes of the nearest Qatar. The Qatars all looked sad but listened to him seriously. Kosa used the last strength in his body and said, "Maintaining our truce is the only option for the kingdom of Alabasta to face the future. Wait for the coming of real light." Kosa's hand holding the hem of the officer's shirt froze. But the breath of life in his eyes was disappearing. The expression on his face stayed at the last moment. That sense of trust in your partner. The Qatars were silent here for a few seconds. Kosa. The Qatars knew that Kosa had passed away, but none of them wanted to take their eyes off his face. People in the square cannot see anything on the high platform more carefully. But they were all in unbelievable grief. The officer in charge of security around the square quickly ordered to chase after the assassin in the building on the west side of the square. Inside the building on the west side of the square, Point 7 took his eyes away from the scope of the death sniper rifle, leaving a lot of sweat on his forehead. The shot just now was the key to the success of both parties. "Okay," Point 7 said. His words were flat, and although the mission had been completed for them now, the real danger was just unfolding. "Okay, let's get ready to leave here. I'll get this evidence thoroughly first." Father's Day walked over to the rebel officer who had passed out here before. She aimed at the temple of the rebel officer, pulled out an ordinary pistol used by the rebel army and shot it. The rebel officer lay in the corner. Blood spurted from the temple. Father's Day quickly used a dagger to cut off the rope on his body and the cloth on his mouth and took him away. She arranged the pistol again, pretending to be the rebel officer committing suicide in fear of crime. She placed a stack of documents inside the rebel officer's clothes. "It's all done." Father's Day turned around and said. Point 7 touched the sweat on his forehead and said, "Okay, let's retreat." When he was about to walk out of this room, he turned his head and looked at it. I Reaper sniper rifle. "Since it hurts so much, why not take it away?" asked Father's Day. Point 7 turned around and said, "This is also evidence. After all, no matter how much I love guns, I still need to give up." The two quickly used the previously set route to escape quickly. After Kosa was assassinated on the square, it turned into a violent riot for a while. Many people are emotional and want to rush to the high platform to see the situation. None of them wanted to believe that Koza had been assassinated. A lot of people hope that Koza survived but was injured, even if they don't believe it. The rebel officers and soldiers quickly blocked the bottom of the high platform. The officers and soldiers of the rebel army quickly rushed into the building where the two assassins were assassinated just now, and went to the assassination room. In this extremely dark room where the sun cannot shine, they only saw a corpse and a very delicate sniper rifle placed on a table, and the muzzle of the gun was aimed at the top of the high platform in the square. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 169. The rebels quickly checked the corpses in the room, but found some very important documents inside. The death sniper rifle was also proven to be the sniper who assassinated Kosa. On the high platform of King's Renaissance Square, grieving officials fully protected Kosa's body and carried it away. Point 7 and Father's Day also successfully escaped from the area near the square. Finally, the two agents arrived in a small alley thousands of meters away from the square. This place is very remote, and it can basically be concluded that the rebel army will not be able to catch up. What a successful assassination, Father's Day gasped. Point 7 observed the surroundings and said, after confirming absolute safety, we successfully completed the mission. Now it's time to report to Mr. Point 2. Then Point 7 took out an encrypted phone bug from his clothes. Sir Point 2, I am Point 7. I have a very happy news to report to you. We have successfully assassinated Kosha, Point 7 said. Well, I was also near the King's Renaissance Square just now. I saw him fall. You did a good job. The most critical step of Plan G this time has been completed. The next step is to try to kill Princess Wei and the others. 2 said in that enchanting shemale tone. Sir Point 2, please give us instructions next. Point 7 said. You successfully assassinated Kosha, but did you successfully frame the king's army? 2 added. At this time, I received another call bug on Father's Day. Point 2 Sir, I captured a former officer of the king's army after verification. He was a member of the king's army who defected to the rebel army. I put documents on him that can prove that he is a traitor of the king's army. Of course, I have created the illusion that he committed suicide out of fear of crime, Father's Day said. That's it, that's good. Of course, I can also add fire to them. It is completely proven that it was the king's army. Point 2 said. Then Sir 2, let's kill Princess Wei and the others. Do you need us? Father's Day said. That's not necessary, because the slave family has a better idea. You continue to be on standby and be careful at the same time. Point 2 said. Okay, said Father's Day. Then Point 2 quickly ended the communication. Father's Day and Point 7 look at each other. Okay, leave the rest to Sir 2, Father's Day said. But we cannot take it lightly. After this incident, the whole of Katla will definitely be turned upside down, so we must be more careful. And always be ready to attack. Point 7 said. Looking at this middle-aged uncle on Father's Day, although the other man seemed to have a calm expression, he was actually very secretive and considered everything carefully. Let's go, we'd better not stay here long. We need to go further. Point 7 said. The two Baroque studio snipers quickly began to hide in the city of Katla. After completing the task of assassinating Kosa, Point 2 was very happy. After he completed communicating with Point 7 and the others, he began to carry out his plan. Inside a small house hidden in the city of Katla. Point 2 open a box full of clothes and start picking clothes from inside. Which one should I choose? I have specially prepared clothes for that person. But it doesn't matter. Even if the clothes are different, the face will be the same. After all, The imitation ability of the slave family is unrivaled in the world. Point 2 said happily. That's it? 2 picked out some robes and cloaks from the box. Point 2 take these robes and cloaks and put them on quickly. Next he came to a mirror, and while looking at the heavily made up face in the mirror, he said narcissistically, the slave family is still so beautiful. Magic mirror, who is the most beautiful person in the world? Yes. Point 2. Okay, next time I'm going to transform. Point 2 began to use his devil fruit ability, and his originally transvestite face gradually became resolute in the mirror. And it was elongated a lot, almost like a jackal's head, and exaggeratedly long black hair also grew on the head. That's right, the face in the mirror is Gaka, one of the 3 ministers of defense of the kingdom of Alabasta. How about I imitate him perfectly? Jaka's resolute face appeared in the mirror, but saying this made people feel extremely awkward. Point 2 the devil fruit ability possessed is exactly the imitation fruit. The imitation fruit allows Point 2 to successfully imitate anyone's face, body, and voice, but it requires contact with that person's body. Point 2 I had previously pretended to be an officer of the king's army and shook hands with Gaga, so I was able to imitate Gaga. In this way, Point 2 has touched many people's bodies through various methods, and even King Cobra can imitate it. Even Kosa, who had just been assassinated, shook hands with him by pretending to be a rebel officer. It's possible that he pretends to be Kosa and is resurrected now. I looked at my changed body repeatedly in front of the mirror, and I felt that I was infallible. Now he will use this body to add another bomb to Katla's already detonated volcano. Now that it's about to begin, it's time to give them orders. 2 quickly took out another encrypted telegraph and phone bug. After typing for a while, send the telegram to the Baroque workshop agents lurking in Katlia City. Of course there is no 7th or Father's Day. In the city of Katlia, from the fruit sellers, to the owners of the cloth shops, to the soldiers of the rebel army, and even the cotters in the high-level rebel army, they all received orders. After activating the telegraph, Point 2 put away the telegraph and phone bugs. Already transformed into Jaka's burly body, Point 2 also moved a little to get used to it better. Okay, it's time to go out and make a scene. 2 opened the door to the room. Point 2 dressed in Jaka walked quickly on the streets of Katlia. Now Katlia really exploded. The streets are full of people, and many people are noisy. Of course it's all about the earth-shattering thing that just happened. Kosa was assassinated. How can it be? Some say it's just an injury. Did the rebels announce his death? Maybe he was just injured, and it's not certain whether he will survive. I do not believe. Who dares to assassinate the Kosa leader? I hope this is just an accident, and I hope the leader of Kosa is not dead. How could this be like this? Disguised as Jaka. Point 2 listened to people's discussions while walking. This chaos was exactly what he wanted, but it needed more fire. Point 2 arrive in front of a group of people who are discussing. After these people saw his exaggerated body, they were immediately shocked. They just looked at the burly Point 2. Point 2 seeing the expressions of this group of people, I thought to myself that Jaka's burly body was really not an exaggeration. He had such a powerful intimidating presence here. And so many people in Katlia must know him. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 170. Are you talking about the death of the traitor Kosa? Let me tell you, he betrayed King Cobra and deserved his death. Point 2 said. As soon as he spoke, the group of people were speechless and looked at him in surprise. Point 2 looked at them with disdain on Jaka's face and said, Humph, if you also side with the rebels, you will end up worse than Kosa. Return to the king's rule quickly. Otherwise, the king's army will definitely end up. I'll behead you all or hang you. After saying these words, Point 2 left here without looking back. These people looked at Point 2's burly back in horror. Some people still recognized his identity. This person seems to be one of Cobra's guard ministers. Point 2. Continue to walk in the appearance of Jaka in this base camp city where rebels gather. In addition to him, there were about 200 other Baroque studio agents spreading rumors about the assassination of Kosa by the king's army in various walks of life. Katlia, who was already very chaotic, is getting worse and worse. Many people rushed to the headquarters building of the rebel army angrily, demanding that the high-level officials announce the news and explain who did it. There was already a lot of noise in front of the building of the headquarters of the rebel army. Countless people and soldiers are protesting here. We want to meet with senior officials. Did the Kosa leader survive? Who assassinated? We will avenge Kosa. Did the king's army and Cobra do this? The guards in front of the headquarters desperately formed a human wall to block the furious people and soldiers. In the lobby of the headquarters, many Qatars hold urgent discussions here. In a room on the side, Kosa's body was lying on a bed. Several Qatars and cronies were crying on the sidelines. Next to Kosa's body, a Qatar knelt in front of Kosa. His face was already red and swollen from grief and crying. Kosa, why would you? This Qatar is one of the Qatars who witnessed Kosa's last words before. A person on the side quickly came over and comforted him. He is already dead. Don't do this again. No, he's not dead. The Qatar looked at the other party with eyes full of anger. Next he looked at Kosa's face. This face still has the roughness of a person who has been in battle for a long time in the desert, as well as the trust in his companions before his death. The Qatar stood up again, looked at Kosa's face and said, "We must carry out Kosa's legacy. Maintain the truce with the king's army." The armistice. Kosa was probably assassinated by them, one person suddenly said angrily. The Qatar immediately said, "No, it is impossible for the king's army to do this." The person who claimed to be one of the mediators of the Sigo kingdom was Princess Weiwei. Since she has already taken action, it is impossible for the king's army to do this. Do it? And the king's army is on the defensive. They are digging their own graves like this. There is no way Cobra is so bad. Could it be that we all saw the documents that day at the Baroque studio? Another person said. The Qatar looked at him and then at Kosa, and said, although those documents cannot be proved to be reliable, at this point, the only people who can assassinate Kosa are those who gain benefits secretly. I can't think of anyone else but them. Then let's quickly find Baroque studio for revenge, one person said angrily. Wait, now our top priority is to stabilize the situation. One is to prevent the war with the king's army, but to prevent the internal division of the rebel army, the Qatar said. After speaking, the Qatar took one more look at Kausha and rushed out of the room. He quickly rushed to the high-level meeting hall of the rebel bureau. In this room, the rebel army was dealing with various matters. At the far end of the room is the seat Kosa used to sit on. Seeing the empty seat, the Qatar suppressed the grief in his heart. As soon as he entered this hall, he heard the noisy voices of other Qatars. The confidants with Kosa are different. Many of these Qatars were the original leaders of various rebel forces. When Kosa was alive before, these people were united by virtue of ability and sense of responsibility. Now they are already quarreling. Kosa is dead, what should we do now? We need a new leader. What do you mean by this? Are you saying you want to be the one? Why should you be allowed to be the one? The future of the rebel army is in chaos. Now Katlia is also in total chaos. Other Alabasta cities and rural areas under our control are also in turmoil. Right now, we need to officially announce the death of Kosa and the murderer to the public. Who is it? Who could be the murderer besides Cobra? Once Kosa dies, the rebel army will be scattered, and then the king's army can defeat them one by one. You can't draw conclusions like that, it's very likely someone else. We can't go on like this. The people are so angry now, it's best to mobilize the army and civilians to attack Arubina and completely overthrow Cobra. Otherwise, if the people don't vent their emotions, they will overthrow us. It's a dilemma right now, neither left nor right. We must reunite, we must create an enemy, and then Cobra is the best. We can't be so hasty. We are in chaos now. If we attack rashly, we may fail. If you want to say that, then let's break up the family. Originally, the rebel army listened to each other. Now that there is no Kosha, it is better for them to act independently. I've had enough of you, I want to take my people away. There are also those troops who have turned against the king's army. Maybe they are all traitors. I will keep my men away from the defecting troops of the king's army. Now everything is going back to chaos. Some of the differences accumulated by the cotters in the current hall in the past have also fully exploded. In fact, some people in the rebel army are not all idealists, and there are even many people who are based on interests. Now the flag of Kosha has fallen. Conflicts broke out across the board. Human beings will never stop seeking power. People will not give up power, and will fight for more power. The cotter became enraged when he saw how these people were fighting for power and acting in isolation. When Kosha was alive, they were very respectful, but now they are so fully exposed. Just for profit. That's enough, please be quiet. The cotter shouted loudly. Everyone in the hall looked at him, but most of them were full of contempt. The cotter continued, Kosa is dead now, but his will is still there. We need to stabilize the situation, stay united and continue the truce. Immediately, a middle-aged rebel cotter said, what is his will? Now the rebel army is leaderless and needs a new strong leader. Oh, who am I talking about? It's Kosa's little follower. You are the only one who is qualified to talk to people like us, another cotter in his 60s said. You're still saying these empty words, said another cotter with a beard. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 171. The veteran cotters of various factions in the conference hall all dismissed this young cotter who had followed Kosha. The only one who can make them obey is Kosha, and now Kosha is dead. For example, Kosha's former confidants and cotters were not taken seriously by them at all. Forget it, rocker. You have been following Kosa for a long time, but you don't know the seriousness of the situation we are facing now. Now we are facing a messy situation. Even if you work together with Kosa's confidant cotters in the past, it is also unable to save the overall situation, a middle-aged cotter with few hairs said. This young cotter, named Rocker, was one of the first comrades to fight with Kosha. But now faced with this group of divided veteran cotters, he was powerless. How can you be like this? In the past, you all claimed how loyal you were to the future of Alabasta. Now you are fighting here for personal gain, Locke said angrily to these veteran cotters. The rebel army is now in chaos, and Rocker and Kosha's former confidants are helpless. By the way, we should announce the details of Kosha's death to the public as soon as possible. Then there is no doubt that Cobra did it suddenly, a gray-haired old cotter said. Locke looked at the veteran cotter and said angrily, how can we make such a conclusion now? Cobra cannot destroy the good situation of the armistice by himself. Crocodile and Baroque Studio are the real culprits. The veteran cotter was dismissive and continued, the authenticity of Crocodile and Baroque Studio's document has not been truly determined. A corpse was found at the assassination site, which was an officer who originally belonged to the rebel unit of the king's army. Evidence was found on him that confirmed that Cobra planned the assassination. Moreover, the public is now emotionally agitated, and if Cobra is not used as a target to divert the conflict, then we will be attacked. Several other veteran cotters agreed after hearing this. Yes, an enemy is needed to vent the anger of the people. The Nefertali family has ruled Alabasta for thousands of years. It is time for them to fall. We need an enemy to unite, so who else can be the enemy except Cobra? After so many years of bloody battle, the blood of so many victims cannot be shed in vain, it must continue. These veteran cotters who agreed were all in favor of the North Korean people announcing the fact that Cobra was the murderer. In fact, there are many people in the rebel army, including high-level people, who still have personal enmity and dissatisfaction with Cobra. They are naturally dissatisfied with the previous decision to cease fighting in Kosa. Taking the opportunity now, he wanted to target Cobra. The anger in Rocker's heart became even more unbearable, and these people were simply showing a stubborn attitude now. All they want now is power and lust. Damn, Rocker was helpless in the face of these stubborn senior cotters, and rushed out of the conference hall angrily. After Locker left, the quarrel continued in the conference hall. Nowadays, the power struggle among these veteran cotters is getting more and more intense. Of course, there are a few who still hesitate or who sincerely admire Kosha, but they cannot save the overall situation. The white-haired old cotter who just advocated the designation of Cobra as an enemy showed a slight smile at the corner of his mouth. He took out a telegram and phone bug with the logo of the Baroque studio behind the desk he had made. Send a telegram quietly. The intelligence network of the Baroque studio has already penetrated into the high level of the rebel army and even the king's army. The last time Crocodile got the news of Wai Wei's arrival was his intelligence. News of Koza's assassination spread throughout Katria and Alabasta. This news was also learned in the building where Vivi, Sanji, and Nami lived in Katlia City. In the hall, Wai Wei was surprised and unbelievable after learning the news. What? This can't be true. Wai Wei's face was full of disbelief. Oops, that Kosa is really dead, Sanji said in surprise as he threw away the cigarette butt in his mouth. Now that Kausha died, it might have an extremely adverse impact on the overall situation. After thinking about it, Nami asked, could this be done by the Baroque studio? Very likely, Sanji said, lighting a new cigarette. The other accompanying drum officials also discussed for a while. After the initial disbelief, Wai Wei calmed down and sat down on a chair. Kosa, he's dead. Wai Wei said in a low voice. Kosa, his former partner and former leader of the rebel army, was assassinated just like that. Putting aside personal relationships, Kosa stabilized the confrontation between the rebel army and the king's army. Once he dies, Alabasta will fall into a bloodbath again. Sanji pondered for a while, and then said, Baroque studio assassinated Kosa, then their purpose must be to further provoke the civil war. Now the situation that has finally calmed down has been broken again. Nami had a worried look on her face. She picked up a cup on the table, took a sip of water and said, well, I suspect that since they can assassinate Kosa, they will also have the intention to assassinate us. Or ours. Their arrival was also known to them. Otherwise, this kind of thing would not have happened so quickly. It's very possible, Sanji said. At this moment, a drum official who went to the street to inquire about information suddenly rushed in. It's bad, something bad has happened. The top leaders of the rebel army announced the results. They said that Cobra assassinated Kosha, the officer shouted as he ran. What? Wai Wei, Sanji, Nami, and the others said in surprise. The officer rushed to the front of the crowd and said, the high-level rebel army has investigated and determined that Cobra planned the assassination. After Wai Wei heard this, her face immediately changed from shock to calm. This must have been framed by Baroque studio, Wei Wei said. I didn't expect these guys to be so vile. They even framed them, Sanji said. It's really bad enough. I'm afraid they will also follow us, Nami said with some concern. Right now, outside this building, a large group of righteous and indignant people are rushing here. These people include civilians and soldiers. That's right here, the hiding place of that Princess Wai Wei. She pretended to be an envoy from the Drum Country and came here to gather information. My father was killed by the king's army. I want to take revenge and use her blood to sacrifice. Since Cobra can't be killed, it's worth killing her daughter. Kosa actually accepted such an ambitious guy. She thought that with the brand of Drum Kingdom as a shield, we dare not do anything. The angry people and soldiers wanted to kill Princess Wei and vent their anger. Some have resentment towards Cobra because they were killed in the war, some want to kill Vivi to avenge Koza, and some want to take advantage of the opportunity to gain profits. But none of them knew that the logo of the Baroque studio was engraved on the arms of the leaders in the sleeves. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 172. The leading agents of the Baroque studio deliberately pretended to be rebel soldiers to spread rumors everywhere, announcing the news that Wei was in Alabasta, and inciting the angry people and soldiers to come to the building together. Well, we're finally here, said a lead Baroque workshop agent. The agent of the Baroque studio and several other agents looked at each other, and they all showed tacit expressions on their faces. They brought about 400 to 500 people behind them. These were angry people and soldiers. They were all armed with weapons and wanted to kill Princess Wei. An agent from the Baroque studio pointed at the building and said, "That Princess Wei is here. There are people from the Drum Kingdom with her, but we must punish the tyrant Cobra, and her daughter also no exception." Do you think so? Yes, Cobra, his ministers and family must go to hell. Avenge our fallen comrades. Avenging family members who died in the war. This group of extremely angry people and soldiers raised their firearms and shouted angrily. Okay, start attacking. The people and soldiers began to rush towards the building. The building where Wei and the others lived was placed by Koza when he was alive, and there were some guards. But after Koza's death, Katla was in a mess, and only a dozen or so people were left to defend here symbolically. However, when they saw the angry crowd, they quickly fled away. Angry people rushed to the gate of the building and slammed the gate violently. Inside the building, Vivi and Sanji, who were still sinking in distress just now in the hall, heard the crashing sound. Why is it so noisy outside? Sanji hurried to the window to take a look. I saw hundreds of very angry people and soldiers attacking the building with weapons. Sanji, who saw the life and death hatred of the other party, hurriedly rushed to Wei and Nami again, and said, "The big thing is not good, someone outside is attacking here." What? Wei said in surprise. Could it be that we were exposed? Nami was so frightened that she fell down on the chair with tears streaming down her face. The accompanying drum officials were also shocked and ran to the window to take a look. As expected, there was a lot of excitement outside, and some people shouted things like killing Princess Wei. Sanji looked towards the noisy gate, and then said, "I think since Baroque Studio assassinated Koza, they must have also revealed the information about us here, allowing people who hate Cobra and the King's army to attack us. This is called killing with a borrowed knife," Nami said angrily. Wei's face was extremely ugly, she clenched her hands tightly, and said in a low voice, "Unforgivable." Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke and said, "Okay, it's useless to hate any Baroque studio now. What is needed now is to quickly block the gate, and then take the opportunity to escape." After that, Sanji kicked the table in the hall away with his feet, and the table flew towards the door. "Hey, hurry up and use the things here to block the doors and windows," Sanji said to the drum officials. These accompanying magnetic drum officials hurriedly worked in a hurry. In addition to the tables, Sanji also kicked the chairs and all kinds of cabinets and clocks in the hall. The drum officials quickly piled up the items and blocked the doors and windows. "Let's go quickly." Sanji grabbed Vivi with one hand and Nami with the other. The three hurried down the stairs to the second floor. The drum officials also piled things up and followed. Sanji and the others rushed to the second floor, where there are still some furniture and items. "Everyone get out of the way." Sanji quickly rushed to the furniture and sundries, and kicked these things to the stairs. This way it can delay some more time. A group of people continued to rush up to the third floor, and on the next third floor, they also blocked the debris at the stairs. Finally rushed to the top of the fourth floor. Here is the top floor. Looking around from here, Katla is now in chaos. Hundreds of people surrounded the building. So many, so scary, Nami sighed as she looked at the crowd besieging the building. Sanji looked around, looking for an escape route. There are many old buildings in the old city of Katla, but they are all relatively low. So you can even escape from the top of the building. Okay, everyone. Now we can escape on the top of the building. But you need to accept the ejection from my feet. Sanji stretched his ankles and said. Other people have no choice but to listen to Sanji now. After all, Sanji is very strong in terms of combat effectiveness and thinking ability. Vivi, you and Ms. Nami come first. Sanji looked at Vivi and said. Okay, Vivi said. Sanji lowered his legs and let Wei Wei step on them. Wei Wei, take off. Sanji kicked his leg towards the top of a nearby building. Wei Wei above was also bounced by the force, and flew towards the top of the building. However, this extraordinary princess landed on the roof of the building as quickly and calmly as a superficial touch. As expected of Wei Wei, she's so handsome, Sanji didn't forget to praise. However, his head was immediately punched by Nami. Ah, Nami. Although Sanji had a headache, he said happily, stroking his head. Hurry. Hurry, Nami urged. Sanji lowered his legs and let Nami step on them. Have a nice trip, Nami. Sanji kicked him again. Nami also flew to the top of the building where Wei Wei was. However, Nami's body balance was not good, and she almost hit her head on the top of the building. It was Wei Wei who quickly grabbed her and let her land safely. Scared me to death, thank you, Wei Wei. But I must take revenge on Sanji, Nami gasped and knelt on the roof of the building. Wei Wei comforted her and said, as long as we can land safely. Sanji continued to kick away the remaining officers. Hey, you guys, hurry up. Sanji was less polite when speaking to these drum officials. Sanji then lowered his legs and swung them away as if he was kicking Vivi and Nami, but just like kicking things away. The drum officials exclaimed for a while and flew to the top of the building one after another. Many of them were lying on their backs or with their heads on the ground. Huh, we finally sent them all, Sanji said after sending everyone away on his feet. At this time, the excited people and soldiers below also broke through the barriers above the gate and the stairs, and arrived here. I'm sorry, I have to leave. Sanji threw away the cigarette butt he had finished smoking, and jumped slightly with his knees slightly bent. In mid-air, Sanji quickly pulled out another cigarette and lit it. Finally, he stuffed the lighted cigarette into his mouth, and his body also landed on the top of the building where Wei Wei and the others were located. Landing like a gentleman, Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke leisurely and said, Hey, we still need to continue to escape. Stop being narcissistic, Nami said, dissatisfied. Now the excited people and soldiers began to gather towards this building. I think we should escape to the east. There are old towns over there, which are more complicated, Wei Wei said. Okay, it's Wei Wei's idea, Sanji said. Next, Sanji continued to use his feet to move a group of people between the roofs, and finally fled to the eastern old city of Katla. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 173. After escaping to the old city in the east, the group can finally take a breather. The buildings in this area are older and even dilapidated. There are very few people living here, and many old buildings here are used to store debris. I think they can't catch up here for the time being. Sanji looked around and said. Nami was sitting next to the wall of a house, her eyes closed tiredly. Ah, I'm really exhausted, Nami said in a low voice. The drum officers were even more uncomfortable. Some of them were injured. After all, Sanji had kicked them away like balls. I'm going to find some water, said a drum official. He immediately went around to look for water. Everyone was very tired and thirsty after running around for a while. However, Sanji still stood upright in front of the crowd. This man had a strong resilience in his bones. This kind of running around was nothing to him. Sanji looked at Wai Wei again, only to see that Wai Wei's face was gloomy now. Vivi, take a break. Sanji walked to Vivi's side and said. Wei Wei has been standing here, just looking at the buildings in the urban area of Katla. Ah, Sanji. Thank you for your concern, I'm fine, Vivi said kindly. Wai Wei's mood is very complicated now, and the situation that has finally settled down has fallen into chaos. The old man Cao Sha also lost his life. Her father, King Cobra, was framed again. Everything is like a mess. Cut constantly, the rationale is still chaotic. Vivi, Katla is obviously in a mess now. Koza was also assassinated. This is indeed a pity. But now we can only face it, Sanji encouraged Vivi. You're right, Sanji. We are facing a very critical situation now. But without Koza, there must be basically no contact with the top brass of the rebel army. Because some people in the top brass of the rebel army once had a close relationship with my father. There is a personal grudge, so once Koza dies, they will definitely target my father again, Wai Wei said. After hearing this, Sanji said, now we are in serious trouble. Baroque Studio not only assassinated Koza, but also tried to blame the king's army, and we were also targeted. This must be from Baroque Studio. Conspiracy. But they must continue to operate in the shadows. We are really not safe in Katla. Then let's evacuate Katla first, Wai Wei said. I think that's the only way to do it, Sanji said. The current situation is very bad, and there is no other way but to leave here first. Sanji and Wai Wei walked over to the drum officers who were resting and began to discuss evacuation. Should we evacuate this place? Asked a drum official. Yes, we have no other choice, Wai Wei said. It seems like this is the way it is, said a drum official. Wait a minute, we have stationed 2,000 troops in the fringe area outside the city. We cannot let them go, another officer said. How about this? You guys should lead the troops of the Drum Kingdom to retreat alone. I will be responsible for covering Wai Wei and Nami to go to Rapeseed Flowers together. After all, Wai Wei's information here is exposed. Baroque Studio and the forces that hate the king must definitely, they are also eyeing those troops. If we are together, we will definitely be intercepted. If we separate, even if you leave, they will not be able to stop you outsiders from Drum Country, Sanji said. Several drum officials looked at each other and felt that there was no other way. Well, that's all there is now. Now it is officially decided to evacuate here, but they are divided into two groups. Sanji took Vivi and Nami and quickly evacuated. Others evacuated with the large force. When everyone had finalized their ideas, the officer who was looking for water suddenly came over. Ah, isn't this John? He has found water, an officer said happily. The officer named John who was looking for water was also one of the accompanying officers. After looking for it for a while, he finally walked over with a wooden bucket. The officer named John also shouted to everyone, "Everyone, I found this bucket of water just now. Let's drink as much as we want." Sanji looked at him, silent, and just blew out smoke rings from his mouth. An officer named John walked up to the crowd and put the barrel down. "This bucket of water is very clean, let's drink together." The officer named John opened the lid of the wooden bucket, and there was clear water inside. It was already afternoon in Katla, and the weather was hot, and the hot and dry wind kept blowing through everyone. Everyone was already thirsty. "Please drink as much as you want, and Princess Wai Wei, you can drink enough." "Please." Officer John scooped a jug of water from a wooden barrel with a kettle and gave it to Princess Wai Wei. Princess Wai Wei did not take it immediately, but hesitated. "Princess Wai Wei." Officer John sent the kettle forward more diligently. At this moment, A hand suddenly grabbed the kettle. The owner of the hand is none other than Sanji. Sanji looked at him with sharp eyes, and Officer John was puzzled for a while. "Drink a pot yourself first." Sanji snatched the water bottle and put it in the opponent's mouth. At this moment, Officer John slammed his body backwards and overturned the kettle. The water in the kettle was spilled on the ground, and the bricks on the street were fine, but there were a few beetles on them. These beetles twitched quickly and turned over in pain and died. Sanji swept the beetles with his eyes, and Vivi and other officers also saw this scene. "I guessed right, you really came to assassinate," Sanji said, turning his eyes to Officer John again. The other drum officers looked at Officer John in shock. "What are you doing, John?" Sanji immediately waved his hand and said, "He is not John. Although I am not familiar with that Officer John. But I was very impressed by him when I cooked for everyone before. He was always the first to drink the drinks I made. The same goes for food. When he carried the barrel just now, the corners of his mouth were very dry, which showed that he had never drank water before. And after opening the barrel, he was not the first to drink. Bring water to Wai. This is too doubtful. And no matter how similar his imitation is, you may feel a little unnatural. No matter how strong the imitator is, it is impossible for him to imitate % flawlessly." After hearing Sanji's words, everyone looked at the fake Officer John. The other party's face became filled with a gloomy smile, and then he made a strange tone for a while. "It can't be helped, you still noticed it." The other party stroked his face with his left hand while talking. Rapidly his visage changed, his face becoming longer and with exaggerated makeup on top of the smoke ring. The whole face has also become very smeared, but it looks like a man again. Then he waved his clothes off. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 174. Now Sanji and others can see the face of this person clearly. He was dressed like a ballet dancer and had a pink coat. There are also 2 white swan decorations on the back of the coat, which are lifelike. "Ah, that's really unlucky. It seems I still need some hard skills to kill you," he said. "Report your name," Sanji said. "The slave family is the imitation master of the Baroque studio, a she-male who is neither male nor female." Point 2. Point 2 revealed his identity. He originally wanted to disguise himself as Officer John and poison Wai, but now he was exposed. Point 2, whose identity was exposed, spun around like a ballet dancer while humming a pleasant song. Point 2 Sanji looked at the other person and said. When Wai on the side saw Point 2, her face immediately became more serious and even a little scared. She knew very well that Point 2 was an extremely powerful existence. Point 2, he is actually here, Wai said very fearfully. At this time, Nami also woke up after resting, and she also saw this scene. This guy calls himself Point 2, so isn't he the powerful existence in Baroque studio, Nami said in horror. Point 2 is one of the strongest beings in Baroque studio. He is the only senior agent who acts alone. In addition to his terrifying imitation ability, he also possesses powerful hand-to-hand martial arts, Wai said. Sanji, on the other hand, kept looking at each other with a calm face. Although the opponent is crazy, Sanji relies on the intuition of a strong hand-to-hand fighter, and the opponent is definitely not weak. Don't worry, Vivi. And Nami. I'll take care of him. Sanji turned his head and said. Sanji flexed his ankle and clenched his fist. Sanji quickly rushed towards the opponent like a cheetah. Point 2 also stopped dancing and began to make a very enchanting-looking martial arts posture. Sanji put his hands in his pockets and struck Point 2 on the head with his feet. Shower Sanji kicked Point 2 in the head. Sanji himself ran up and ran over, and then kicked like a spear and stabbed at the opponent. When Sanji's feet were already in front of Point 2, the opponent's hands suddenly blocked the front very flexibly. Unexpectedly, both hands grabbed Sanji's feet abruptly. Sanji immediately retracted his foot, and the other leg swept across the opponent's waist. I saw Point Two's body falling sideways with amazing flexibility, almost making an exaggerated ballet movement and dodging the attack. Not bad at all. After Sanji praised him, he attacked the opponent more than 10 times in a row. However, Point Two dodged the attacks as gracefully as if they were dancing. Ballet boxing technique. Dreamy feet. Point Two, both feet are like a graceful dance, circling and kicking sideways towards Sanji. Sanji stepped back abruptly while resisting with his feet. Then look at this, Sanji suddenly jumped to a high place, and then his whole body spun like a wheel. Point Two below looked up and felt that the situation was not good. Crushing Sanji's whole body was smashed down, still like a wheel spinning at high speed. Point Two escaped quickly. The moment he dodged, Sanji's feet also hit the ground. The feet that rotated at high speed like a wheel were full of strength, directly cracking the masonry on the ground and flying across. Point Two stepped back for 20 meters before stopping, with beads of sweat on his face. It almost cost my slave's life. It seems that I underestimated the enemy. Point Two said with lingering fear. If he hadn't dodged the blow just now, it would have killed him. However, Sanji did not stop attacking the lost man, and rushed over again. Shoulder. Sanji kicked Point Two's left shoulder with his right foot, but he blocked it with his arm. Brisket. Sanji kicked Point Two's right chest with his left foot, but the opponent turned sideways and Sanji's foot missed him. First class minced meat. Sanji jumped up, and suddenly attacked the opponent's vitals continuously. Point Two tried his best to resist Sanji's intensive foot attacks, and the sounds of fist and foot confrontation between the two sides made the dust fly. It's really difficult, so I'll take it seriously. Point Two. Everyone was annoyed. He suddenly jumped into the air, his whole body tumbling and spinning in an exaggerated way. It's somewhat similar to Sanji's course wheels, but it's not like Sanji's wheels. Point Two. When rotating, the limbs are spread out, so it looks more like a ball. Shemale boxing. Memoirs of that summer. Point Two. The whole person was smashed down. Sanji quickly dodged, but Point Two still approached him. Sanji resisted violently with his feet, but was still pushed back more than 10 meters by the opponent's strength. Memoirs of that summer is less gritty than Sanji's, but more flexible. After spinning, Point Two stood on the ground again. He looked at Sanji and said with a wink, "You are one of the strongest opponents I have ever seen. If we only talk about hand-to-hand combat, then you are definitely among the top 3. Sanji looked at him, regained his stance, and said, "I don't like your compliments. You know I only fight with my legs. You should only talk about your foot skills." Point Two's face became a little strange, and he said, "You actually fight with just your legs and feet. You are so powerful like this, I really admire you. In this case, just in terms of feet, you are the strongest person I have ever seen. However, in addition to being able to fight, you are also quite handsome. You must be very popular among beauties." Hearing this, Sanji's face immediately changed color, and he couldn't hold it anymore. He was not particularly happy to appreciate his cooking skills or martial arts. But praising him for being a beautiful woman, the stern expression on Sanji's face suddenly became a little narcissistic. "Well, although I don't like your attire and appearance, I admit that you have a good eye. Indeed, the superb chef Sanji is destined to be a beautiful woman," Sanji said proudly. Immediately, he felt a bit of sympathy with this opponent who was neither male nor female. Those who appreciate each other are real opponents. Point Two immediately made a seductive gesture, holding his face with his hands and making a kissing and loving gesture. "Your name is Sanji, and you're also a chef. So do you like me, my dear?" Point Two said exaggeratedly. Sanji's face that was basically calm changed instantly. "Don't disgust me, okay?" Sanji's eyes almost burst out of their sockets. Nami and the drum officials who were watching the battle also wanted to retching, but the meal they had eaten today had already been digested. Only Wai Wei still looked at the two fighting men with a serious face. She has always been worried that Sanji's weakness will be discovered. Sanji likes beautiful women very much. However, Point 2 is a person who is very good at imitating, and he must be able to imitate many beauties. Once discovered, Sanji will be completely passive in the battle. After Sanji was disgusted, he quickly turned his face serious again. Although you are not completely useless, to be honest, I hate guys like you who are neither male nor female the most. Sanji suddenly rushed towards Point 2 again. The two fought fiercely together again. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 175. Sanji and Point 2 used their whole bodies to fight fiercely. Although Sanji only attacks with his legs and feet, his arms are also responsible for support and coordination, so that he can exert the power of his legs to the limit. Banquet table and kicking package. Sanji put his hands on the ground, stood upside down, and kicked the opponent with his feet. Point 2 quickly somersaulted backwards, but he did not dare to go too far and withstand Sanji's powerful attack. Shemale boxing technique. Shemale serial cannon. Point 2 regained his footing, and then hit Sanji with his fists like a barrage of cannonballs. Sanji tried hard to block with both feet, barely blocking the opponent's attack. In the eyes of Wai Wei and others around him, Sanji's attacks were tough, full of power and speed. The attack of Point 2 has a soft and graceful feeling like a dancer. However, in the battle, the two people have offense and defense against each other, and they are on par. Sanji, you must win. Vivi prayed for Sanji. After fighting for a while, Sanji was within 2 meters of Point 2 again. 3 points cut. Sanji's left leg kicked at the opponent's throat, chest, and abdomen in an instant at an astonishing speed. In addition to the 3 kicks being blocked at the throat, Point 2 was kicked in the chest and abdomen. Under this powerful force, Point 2's body rolled several meters away. The shemale quickly stood up and patted the sand on his body. Okay, your legs and feet are really powerful. But I have to use my special move, Point 2 said in his weird shemale accent. Point 2, the whole person danced like a ballet dancer, and at the same time quickly approached Sanji. Then he kicked Sanji with amazing flexibility and quick succession of his feet. Every foot is extremely fast. Ballet boxing. Gorgeous swan dance. Point 2, powerful swan dance like continuous kicks hit Sanji. Sanji tried his best to block, but was kicked more than 10 times in a row. Vivi and Nami, who were watching the battle, exclaimed, Sanji, when they saw it. Sanji tumbled more than 10 meters before stopping, regained his footing and looked at the opponent. How about the slave family's attack is very powerful. Point 2, which had just successfully attacked Sanji, was now landing on one foot and spinning like a ballerina. Sanji wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his hand. It's powerful enough, Sanji just said plainly, and took out the cigarette and lighter from his clothes to relight the cigarette, put it in his mouth and took a deep puff. Point 2 stopped spinning, but looked at Sanji and said, it seems that you are not seriously injured. You are still so leisurely. Sanji moved his ankle again, and his momentum suddenly increased. Point 2 also saw the change in Sanji and quickly prepared to fight. Sanji jumped up suddenly, with one leg parallel to the ground and one leg straight down, and then his body began to spin like a top. Point 2 below, quickly avoid. Skewers. Sanji's whole body was like a drill bit hitting the Point 2 below. With a loud noise, Sanji's whole body drilled into the ground below like a drill. A pothole with a diameter of half a meter suddenly appeared on the ground that was drilled, and the ground several meters around was shattered. Sanji, who stopped, looked at point 2, who had just escaped in a critical moment and jumped up again. Just now, point 2 narrowly escaped death and hid in an emergency a few meters away. But Sanji's feet flew over again. First meat. Shoulder. Back meat. Meat under saddle. Brisket. Leg meat. A series of kicks hit various parts of point 2's body. Point 2, who was being kicked, was about to resist, but saw Sanji jump on top of him and reverse in mid-air. Sanji's right leg concentrated astonishing force and kicked towards him. Lam shot. Sanji's powerful kick kicked point 2 away. After being hit hard, point 2 flew out and hit the wall of a nearby house hard. Under this powerful force, the wall also shattered, and point 2's whole body was knocked into it. After Sanji's attack, he let out a long breath of relief. It was also very difficult for him to attack with powerful moves just now. But fortunately, he successfully kicked the point 2 away. Wei, Nami, and the drum officials who were watching the battle were extremely happy. "Good job, Sanji," Nami said happily. "Sanji is awesome," the drum officials said with encouragement. However, only Wei remained calm, and the other party was also an extremely powerful existence in the Baroque studio. It cannot be defeated so easily. Sanji looked at the broken wall, and there was a sound from inside. Point 2, who was knocked away just now, stood up again and walked out. The shemale's face was full of resentment. Makeup is a bit messed up. His body was slightly injured, but it was still intact. The slave family is angry. 2 said unhappily. Sanji looked very calm and said, "Then what other tricks do you want to use?" Point 2 first, he took out an exquisite makeup box from his clothes, opened the box and looked at his face in the mirror. After seeing the face in the mirror, this ladyboy's face became extremely ugly. "Ah, my beauty." Point 2 threw the makeup box into the air in shock and anger. An angry scream followed. Sanji exhaled helplessly. "My beauty, ah ah ah." Point 2 burst into tears, and now the makeup on his face has become even worse because of the tears. "Hey, don't you want to continue beating?" Sanji finally couldn't bear it anymore and asked. "Slave, you must fight with a different face." Point 2 stroked his face with his right hand. The fruit of his imitation began to work, and his face began to change with the one he had touched before. Soon his face became more slender and delicate, and his eyes changed from the exaggerated style to watery and pure. The mouth changed from a big mouth to a small cherry mouth. The face is even more delicate and smooth, impeccable. There is a delicate temperament between the eyebrows. Her brown hair was tied back by 2 delicate braids. Point 2 except for the clothes, she became a pure and beautiful girl. "Well, this looks pretty good. The slave family has finally become beautiful," Point 2 said in a very pretentious manner. Although his appearance, body, and even voice have changed into that of a pure girl, he is still the pretentious and narcissistic ladyboy in his heart. Everyone who watched the battle from a distance was in awe. Nami's face became miserable, and she sighed and said, "He has become this kind of person. I must not be imitated by him." The drum officials were all very surprised, and some of them drooled. "What a pure and beautiful girl, but it's a pity that he's still a man," an officer said with a complex expression of love and regret. Wei's face became extremely ugly. Now that Point 2 has changed into this appearance, then Sanji. Looking at Sanji again, it turns out that Sanji is no longer able to control himself. Pirate Plant Fruit. Author, Lee A Dream. Chapter 176. Now Sanji looked towards Point 2 with a loving look on his face. Point 2 in such a few seconds, he transformed into a pure and beautiful girl. Although Sanji tried to wake up rationally, the urge for beauty in his bones made it difficult for him to extricate himself. "Now, the slave family is going to fight you with this appearance," Point 2 now said in the voice of a pure girl. However, he soon found that Sanji was a little unnatural, or that the calmness and toughness in the battle just now were gone, and now he looked like a very flamboyant son-in-law. "What's wrong with you?" Point 2 asked. As soon as Sanji heard the innocent girl's voice, he put his palms together next to his face, and couldn't help saying, "It's so cute." Point 2 was a little surprised, but he thought about it carefully and combined it with Sanji's previous remarks. "So it's like this, you like beautiful women. And you won't hurt beautiful women, right?" 2 asked, pretending to be more innocent. Sanji couldn't extricate himself, and continued to say with eyes full of love, "Yes, I am a gentleman. It is impossible to bully a lady." Point 2 After hearing this, he understood completely, and now he can use this to deal with Sanji to his heart's content. "Then, this handsome guy. You can enjoy my comfort," Point 2 said as he approached Sanji. Sanji immediately became more philandering. But head-on is kicked over. This kick was so powerful that it kicked Sanji 7 or 8 meters before stopping. Sanji, Nami, Waiwei, and the drum officers who were watching the battle shouted together. Sanji, who was knocked down, quickly stood up again and said with a wry smile, "The kick from the beauty just now was really." At this time, Point 2 rushed in front of him again, and Sanji immediately prepared to raise his legs to resist. But when the other party's pure and beautiful girl's face flashed in front of his eyes, this gentlemanly playboy immediately just laughed again. Another 2 punches made a black circle in Sanji's right eye under his curled eyebrows, and he rolled several times. Waiwei couldn't stand it anymore and quickly shouted, "Sanji, don't look at his face." Sanji also tried his best to avoid the opponent's head. When Point 2 approached again, his feet had already been kicked out. However, it was successfully blocked by Point 2. "What are you doing, handsome guy? You can't be so rude." The voice of a beautiful girl imitated by Point 2 is heartwarming. Although he doesn't look at his face, his pure and lovely voice is still hard to control. Sanji's heart immediately became pounding again, and although there were dark circles under the eyebrows on his face, he was still full of smiles. "Beauty," Sanji said with a smile on his face. Point 2 waved his feet and was about to attack again. At this moment, a bullet suddenly shot over. Point 2 relies on combat intuition and changes body movements the moment the bullet is fired. Point 2's beautiful girl's face was full of murderous intent, and he looked in the direction of the bullet. I saw Princess Waiwei pointing a pistol at him. Princess Waiwei saw that Sanji had nothing to do with him, so she quickly asked for a pistol from the drum officer. And she also knew that melee combat was no match for people like Point 2. It was best to use firearms to attack from a distance. "Don't just watch, hurry up and shoot to support," Waiwei said. "Okay." The drum officers drew their pistols to support. Waiwei and the officers fired their pistols at Point 2. Point 2 The weapon is very powerful, but not to the point of being able to catch bullets. "Damn, let's ignore this lecherous guy for now. And my target is also Princess Waiwei." Point 2 avoided while preparing to kill Princess Waiwei first. He quickly found a wooden board, and then rushed towards Waiwei and the officers in front of him. "Shoot, retreat quickly," Waiwei said as she fired. Point 2 raised the board and charged, but many bullets still penetrated the board, but this shemale's amazing skills actually managed to dodge these bullets. Finally, he rushed to the front of the crowd. Suddenly the board he used to block the front fell down, and there was no one behind. "Where has he gone?" the drum official said in shock. At this moment, there was a whistling above everyone's heads. Point 2 suddenly fell on top of them. Ballet boxing. Whirlwind romance. Point 2 The whole person danced a ballet in mid-air and spun. But this time it kicked the head of the person below with both feet. There was a burst of screams and violent collisions, and the 5 drum officials below were all knocked to the ground. Their faces were almost deformed from being kicked, and thanks to Point 2, the force was not strong enough this time. In the end, Wai Wei was left alone and pointed her gun at Point 2 in fear. Point 2 looked at her and said, "Okay, kill the princess, then I have basically completed the task. Kill the other people as much as I feel like." Point 2 suddenly rushed in front of Wai Wei and kicked the pistol out of Wai Wei's hand. Then he rushed to the front of Wai Wei alone, and lifted Wai Wei up. As long as Point 2's arm exerts more force, Wai Wei's neck will be violently severed. At this moment, Point 2 felt a cool breeze behind him. Before he turned his head, Sanji's foot had already kicked him on the back of the head. "What?" Point 2 turned out painfully. Wai Wei was also thrown away. Sanji quickly rushed into the air, hugging Wai Wei like a hero saving the beauty. Finally, Sanji knelt and half-kneeled to the ground. Sanji Vivi said after being put down by Sanji. "Your Majesty, the knight is here to serve you. I was distracted just now because of that she-male pretending to be a beautiful girl. I hope you will forgive me," Sanji said with great respect. Sanji and Wai Wei looked at the defeated Point 2 again. Sanji's blow just now was really powerful, and it hit the back of the head. Point 2 now also stood up in embarrassment, and looked at the two men with a ferocious face. "Damn it, I'm going to kill you," Point 2 said angrily. Wai Wei said to Sanji, "Sanji, you have to be careful." "Thank you, but princess. Fighting is a knight's business, please don't interfere anymore," Sanji said. "Then be careful," Wai Wei said. Sanji walked towards Point 2 and straightened his collar. There was no smoking in his mouth now. Point 2 looked at Sanji, but he had another wrong idea. The she-male touched his face with his right hand again, and used the ability to imitate the fruit again. His face changed rapidly, but this time it was not the pure and beautiful girl before. This time his face is more slender and angular, and he has long black hair. This time, she turned into a sexy, mature, and capable girl. "Honey, do you want to date me?" Point 2 said in a mature and charming voice. But he only saw Sanji lower his head this time, deliberately not looking at his face. Point 2 his eyes flashed with murderous intent quickly, and he rushed towards Sanji. A sharp kick to Sanji's head from the right side. Thigh meat chewed. Sanji's leg kicked hard towards the thigh of his leg, knocking him back. Point 2 regained his balance and said in surprise, "How could this happen?" At this time, his appearance and body had returned to their original state.